Anyone who can get out right now. Do not look up. Do not make eye contact. Just go. Lee, stay calm. I'm right here.
We are live in 5 minutes.
You have the revisions for the opening.
We're still making some changes.
Am I going to get the changes before the show or after
You know the
the
drill.
show?
You just point the camera my direction, we'll figure it out together.
It always sounds so simple and yet so moronic.
Here he is, the Wizard of Wall Street himself.
The name is Lee Gates. The show is Money Monster. Without risk, there is no reward. Should I sell? Should I unload? Get some balls! Man up!
Who's that guy on camera two?
You want to complain about it? Go ahead.
Who is it? Anybody know?
Was it a union thing?
Cut the feed.
Whoever's in there, turn the cameras on. Turn the cameras on, Patty. Turn them on,
What do you want me to do?
Turn them on.
Put it up.
Take it out. Put it on.
How do I know it won't blow up?
Because I have the detonator. My thumb comes off this trigger, then we all explode. I might be the one with the gun here, but I'm not the real criminal. It's people like these guys.
I got my finger on the trigger,
I'm telling you, it's rigged. The whole damn thing.
but I don't know who to trust.
They're stealing everything from us, and they're getting away with it, too.
Look into
How's that
you.
even fair?
Just keep talking to him. All right, you're good at that.
Got my finger on the trigger.
You lost a lot of money when the market tanked.
Faith just ain't.
They tracked down his girlfriend. That was everything we had. Every last cent. What are you doing?
I'm just trying to survive.
I'll get you some answers.
Nobody was asking any questions before. These guys could expose everything.
We both want an explanation for what went wrong.
We don't know. You have to understand how delicate of a situation this
I'm
is.
sitting 80 feet from a bomb. Don't talk to me about delicate situations.
We're human beings, we're not computers. We have a conscience.
I'm trying to save him. You're trying to shoot him.
I want an explanation.
Follow the money, find the fraud.
We're in this together now. Don't turn your back on anybody. I don't want you to die.
Oh my God.
No! You came here to get some answers. You deserve to get some answers.
Guys, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on this movie that is so many things combined together so well, which is
a lot of things.
it's a
There's a lot of
really
layers.
hard thing to do, and you pulled it off.
Yeah, it's hard to get a real picture of what the movie is. It's very, very unusual. It's complicated and smart, but funny, but fast, but character-driven. You know?
Absolutely. I mean, I can give a sense of it to the audience by asking this first question, which is, what attracted it to you to it? Was it a New York movie? Was it a media satire? Was it a financial industry takedown? Was it a comedy, a thriller, or possibly one of the best Sidney Lumet homages we've ever had?
Well, the Sidney Lumet component was definitely one of them. I mean, he's really one of my heroes. I hope we could ever make a movie that's as close to a Dog Day Afternoon or a Network. Really, it was despite the fact that it's a tense thriller and it's fast-paced and all of that stuff, for me, it's really just about the characters and specifically these two men that change each other and the woman who is kind of directing their survival.
It's two men really sort of confronting their own limitations as human beings. What this man, his power as a sort of leader in media, as a financial predictor,
Right.
and as an on-camera personality, and this other guy's limitations as sort of just like a blue-collar guy who only has so many skills at his disposal, but is sort of exposed to this idea that he could be anything at any time. He could grow and he could win the lottery. He could sort of pick a stock that would make him a rich man.
Right.
What interested you in this idea of failure and limitations?
Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean that's sort of this American idea that if you do the right thing and you take care of your mom and you show up for work, that at the end of the day you're going to invest safely and that somehow there's going to be something waiting for you at the end of the day. And in this case, there isn't, and it's not fair, and he's filled with rage. That's really where Jack came in, and it's a really extraordinary performance because he's a guy who's unstable. Well, I'll let him talk about it. Yeah.
Well, it's Jack. I mean, it's always a great performance with Jack. Starting with Start Up, that's a phenomenal performance as well. If you guys are a fan of Jack and you haven't seen Start Up, go back and watch it. So, can you talk about your character at all in this performance?
Yeah. I mean, in agreeal with what Jodie says, he's been very hard done by, and he was told that if he did everything in the right order, and you know, behaved, he'd get his just desserts, and he doesn't. He gets stolen from, and so he's put in a very desperate situation, and I think he's not about to let himself roll over. He's not about to let himself be swindled without there being any repercussions. So I just think it's this guy's trying to figure out his self-worth, because at the moment he's worth nothing before the film, because of money which he lost. And a fella like Kyle, I don't think needs to feel any less significant than I guess he already did. And he's got a baby on the way, which kind of suggests that his actions are quite selfless. So there was enough there for me to reason with him and agree with him and kind of want him to be victorious. But I don't know, I think that was just the romantic side of me. I wouldn't advise anybody does what Kyle does in the movie. I think Kyle's problem is that he's had very bad advice, and that's what's got him in the situation that he's in. But what excites me about being an actor is that we get to socially observe, commentate, and hopefully ask the right questions, you know, and make things transparent when otherwise it can be quite confusing. I think this system by design, the financial one, is a confusing one, particularly for the likes of Kyle, myself. So yeah, I think that's one of the roots of his many frustrations, and he chooses to act on it. Quite daft what he does, but I think for the purposes of entertainment, anyway, we get to enjoy it.
Well, I think one of the great aspects about Kyle, kind of going back to this, a lesser movie would have had him just be the nobleman, would have just had him come in and be extremely noble and doing the right thing, but he's not really all there. There's something kind of missing, and he's missing a number of pieces of the puzzle, which is kind of a hard thing to do as a storyteller, you know, because at that point you're adding complexity. So how do you get the audience to go along with that? And I was wondering, when I watched it, did you shoot safeties when you were doing this character?
We did a lot of takes, actually, more than I would normally do, than I would normally do with Jack. It's just that we, wanted to make sure we had the footage that it would take. We knew the character was going to be difficult to balance. He is unstable. He's unstable, and he's angry, and he's dangerous, and yet there are moments where you just want to throw your arms around him and tell him it's okay. And there's a tenderness and a sweetness to him as well. So we had to sort of balance that out as the film went on.
Well, there's a great scene in the movie with his girlfriend. I don't want to give anything away, but that scene in particular, when I watched it, I was like, that must have been so difficult to make the decision to go in this direction here. And I wondered if you had shot that in a different way so that when you got into the editing room, you can be like, you know what, I don't know, maybe we need to go this way with that for the audience.
No, I always commit. I always commit to the storytelling, and I think that comes from making smaller movies with lesser budgets. I mean, you make a decision about what your film is about, and then you follow your heart, and if you fall on your face, then you fall on your face. But I think you have to commit, otherwise your film doesn't have a real signature. It's just, a bunch of safeties.
Well, you definitely didn't fall on your face in this. I loved it. I thought it was really brave. But this is, you said you're used to making smaller movies. This is your biggest movie that you've made so far, right?
Biggest movie as a director, yes, definitely.
Nerve-wracking, exciting, all of that?
Well, it's kind of the same thing, only more people and, longer and all of that kind of thing. I mean, I think you still have to ask yourself the same questions and make sure that you only ask yourself those questions, Is it true or isn't it? And the second you start asking questions like, will audiences like it, or how many people will go opening weekend, I think you make terrible mistakes because you're just deciding things out of fear. You want to make sure that you stay true to the original creative impulses that you might have on any movie.
Well, now it takes like 2 to 4 years to get a movie made. What are some of the questions that you more than that?
Way more than that. Usually more than that.
How long have you been working on this project?
Well, this one was pretty fast, actually. I've been on it for 4 years or so. The producers, Dan Dubecki and Lara Alameddine, developed the screenplay, then brought me on, and we looked for a new screenwriter together, and we spent a couple of years working on the screenplay so that it was absolutely 100% what we wanted before we went to talent and before we went to financing. That way we could, make sure we put our best foot forward.
What are some of the questions that you ask yourself before you start a movie? What are like 2 questions that you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this for 4 years.
Yes.
These are the 2 things that I need to know going into it for my own sanity for the next 4 years.
Well, one is, does it move me? Because that's the one thing that keeps you going, is if it still moves you. If when you tell a friend what the story is about, if suddenly you feel, passionate and kind of choked up about it. That's essential. If you don't have that, I don't know how to make a movie where it's just a bunch of explosions and people with green faces. Like I don't know if somebody said to me, you know, what type of tea does the Martian drink? I'd say, I don't know. You pick one. You know, it's continually making choices, and the only way that you can make choices is by knowing the characters and by really sort of having a personal investment in the film. And that's what you learn through the course of the movie, is you learn your personal investment, which may have been slightly unconscious to you when you started. By the middle, you're starting to get an idea about it as you hone the film towards that direction, and by the end, you do really realize what the personal connection is.
Absolutely. Jack, what about you? What are questions? I mean, what is it?
I'll just say, I like your trainers, man.
You like my Reeboks?
Yeah, where did you get them from?
I got those on a website.
I've never seen them with the green print.
They, I mean, I'm pretentious. I bought vintage Reeboks on a website. Like, give me a break. I don't know how else to talk about it.
They're smart.
What are some questions that you ask yourself before you go into a project? Specifically this one. You get a script. It's Jodie Foster, George Clooney, and Julia Roberts are already attached. Are all your questions answered?
No, well, my first question is, can we do this with a Derby accent? To which the response is usually no. So then, I mean, seriously speaking, I guess the whole project, the movie on the whole, for me, has to say something, has to mean something beyond just entertainment value. It's how I like to work, how I prefer to work. And then once that's in place, I guess then it becomes a study on the character. And you know, if what the film is saying or trying to state, if that means enough, then you don't necessarily have to like the character you're playing. You know, you can almost hate the character you're playing. If that's what his involvement in the story is there to do, there to achieve, then that can be exciting too. In this case, I like Kyle. I liked him on page. I like what he stood for. So, you know, I was really excited about trying to make that human and give him a heartbeat, you know, and breath.
I think for the first time, too, in regards to your career and performances that I've seen you in, we get to see you bring, as serious as this character is, a little bit of levity to him. It seems like as an actor, you're kind of looking for moments where you can bring levity to this character. Human moments of levity, not just sort of trying to add laughs. Whereas I think we're used to you, like I said, in Startup and Unbroken, sort of very serious characters. Was that something that engaged you with this story as well, that this character himself had several different facets of sort of emotional reach?
Yeah, and throughout my career, I guess it will continue to do so. And I find myself a lot of the time reflecting on previous roles and how this potential next role would hopefully complement my previous work. I really respect our actors that manage to achieve diversity within their roles, and that's my intention, to be able to look back on a very varied body of work one day.
Now, the movie in many ways is a three-hander with you, George Clooney, and Julia Roberts. Julia Roberts mainly being in the control room a lot of the time, but you and George Clooney sort of occupying the same stage. Can you talk about working with him and what that was like and sort of building those scenes?
Yeah, great lad. George is a great lad, I'd say. It made me feel very welcome from the start, and we developed a mutual interest in sport. We figured that we had common grounds there when it comes to sport. So we had plenty to talk about when we wasn't, you know, on camera.
You weren't punching each other.
Yeah.
Biting each other's faces, things like that.
Do you guys?
There's actually no biting in the movie.
Do you generally sort of, when you're not rolling, do you generally find time to hang out and joke around a little bit? Can you turn it off pretty easily?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to, but then certain scenes require a different level of concentration. George is good in that he's always present on set. He doesn't really leave, and the tendency as an actor is to leave sets when technical things start to happen. But George was very present, and I can see the advantages in that. But also, like I say, I'll reiterate, very welcoming. Made me feel like I deserved my opportunity to be there quite early, so that's good, because then you can relax, you know, and like nervous factors or nerving factors become irrelevant, and you can just concentrate on the work and try things. So yeah, credit to George and Julia for that matter.
Jodie, going after the financial institutions within this movie, you're not necessarily going after the institutions themselves, but sort of how we approach them, how the media approaches them, which is creating a villain like that, you're creating a sort of vast, unknowable, unseeable villain. Was that difficult for you as a writer to do that? I mean, then you kind of have to hone in, and how do you find representation of that for your characters to actually sort of bounce off of a little bit? That question makes sense. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it did. I mean, the writer did a lot of research. Obviously, I mean, it's a very factually, truthful film, and all of these things are possible. And it's an incredibly difficult, mysterious, arcane world, the world of finance, which is designed that way intentionally, so that a few people that understand it can benefit from it exclusively. Once we understood that. The things that we wanted to say, then it was just a question of going in and looking at the examples, and they're out there. I will say in the film that, and this I do in all of my movies, I'm not sure there is really a bad guy. Everybody has a point of view. I mean, even the guy who, in our film, is doing some tricky business, at the end of the day, he says, nobody was complaining when I was making you money. Everybody looked the other way. Everybody was just looking for more stocks. But the second that I lost something, that's when, everybody was concerned. And that's, really quite true of what's happening right now in the financial world, is that as long as things are going well and there's no crash, everybody wants to experience the bubble and doesn't want to believe that somehow it's going to end or that it's artificially manufactured.
Well, it's like you said, tricky business. I mean, it's tricky on purpose.
Yes.
The business is tricky. Sorry if I was
Yes.
doing what it wanted me to do.
Right.
And that's some of the things that you talk about with this character, in the sense that you can blame him for investing, but at a certain point, it's the economy that is rigged to sort of stop him at any point from being able to gain up to a certain level.
Yeah, I mean, and he talks about that. It's fixed, that it's a club in some ways, and it's fixed against people like him. Our financial system is imperfect, and I don't think that anybody in the movie is saying that, they don't believe in Wall Street, or they think that it's a bad idea and that we should overturn our financial world. The problem is that it's rife with abuses, and those are, really easy to abuse a system when the people who are regulating it are the ones who are writing the rules and who are also the ones that are benefiting from it.
And the ones that are sort of talking about it on a daily basis on what we call news channels are essentially just making a spectacle of themselves, and like you said, kind of complacent.
Yeah, and they're complicit as well, so it's that sort of kickback, mentality. All of these things, these three worlds, the broadcast world, the television, showman, entertainment world, the
infotainment, if you will.
The financial world, and just the broad specter of technology are interwoven in the film, and I think that's what gives it its relevance as a really modern tale.
Absolutely. I'm curious what you learned directing this movie. I've read that you've talked a lot about, SWAT teams and guns and all these things being new for you. What was that sort of like for you, shutting down parts of the city and roaming through with George Clooney with a gun to his back and SWAT teams?
There's a lot of paparazzi downtown, I'll tell you. But you know what? New Yorkers are amazing. They're amazing citizens. They know how to stand there and not make noise when the cameras are rolling, and then when the cameras aren't rolling, it's, hey, George. It's awesome. I love shooting here. I love the crews that are here. I like being able to go on the one day I might have off on a Sunday, being able to have a coffee and walk around New York City. It's a great place to shoot.
I'm curious, your first movie was Little Man Tate, right? In 1991, which you starred in?
Came out in 91.
Big fan of Little Man Tate right here. Thank you. And going up to, The Beaver was your last movie, which is such a phenomenal dark comedy. That movie came out of nowhere, and I think a lot of people didn't respond to it, didn't know what to expect.
Right.
And it's so dark and smart. I'm curious, starting with Little Man Tate, what's one thing that you've learned about making films, directing for you, that you've sort of kept with you all the way through, even into this last movie? As the movies have changed, you hold on to this sort of one thing you learned.
Well, the one thing I learned from my first movie, I wish I had learned it before the first movie, but is that my job is not to control the actors and the acting. My first film, I was busy telling the other actors exactly what to do, and I was acting in the movie, so that was really awkward to be in a scene with somebody and say, like, oh, you're going to say this, and then I'm going to say that, and you're going to do it this way. I really learned as the years went on not to control the actors. The best way for me to work with actors is to prepare them, to talk to them about where they're headed, to inspire them, to create an incredibly well-designed, well-oiled machine where we know exactly what we're doing, exactly what we're trying to say, and then in a split second, I say action, and they're left free to do things incredibly quickly, so that they're given a kind of spontaneity and an ability to try things and not think about them too much.
Is that what it feels like on the set, Jack?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure, there was a sense of freedom, and experimenting felt very welcome. So yeah, and I think it's great to be able to feel like you're able to make your own choices. But then there were times where, you know, I needed guidance, and I wouldn't know the answers, and there were times where Jodie would come quite intimately and give me the key, so to speak. And then if we didn't have time to talk about it, sometimes Jodie would just come and do the emotion.
Yeah, I just
for me.
it's such a terrible habit. I'm so sorry. You're not
No,
supposed
but
to
it
tell
works
anyone
for me,
that.
Jodie.
Wait, you would come over and sort of not a line read, but do do it big.
Sometimes I just have to act what I'm saying, and it's weird. My face gets all like, and I don't know how to say it any other way except to show somebody emotionally how it feels. Sometimes that's helpful. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes people just say, "Can you just tell me faster or slower?"
Do you think that comes from sort of coming up as an actor? Like, you know, you started when you were so young. I would imagine that emotionally for you, whether you're directing or just in your daily life, it might just be easier for you to express yourself in a kind of performance.
Sometimes it is, and especially with Jack's character, who is somebody who is really emotional and physical. He's not that much of an intellectual. It doesn't mean that he's not the wisest. He is the wisest person in the film. He's the one that really asks the correct questions, and he's the one that really has his finger on the pulse in some ways, but he's not intellectual. So it was impossible to explain who Kyle was or what he was saying intellectually. Anyway.
Jack, now I read that you guys were shooting, when you're shooting on the set, the Money Monster set, you had both the sort of TV Vericams, right, and you had film cameras. Were you shooting sort of the scenes in two separate ways at that point, or were you shooting the show and then catching it on the film cameras, or vice versa? I'm just curious what that production process was like.
It's a very annoying process. Yes, basically we had to have two very separate, media. So we have 4 broadcast cameras. And then we have what we call the film camera, even though we don't really use film anymore, it's all digital. But the film camera, yes, an Alexa that has a different lens on it that looks completely different. Obviously, our film camera would be in the shot of all the broadcast cameras, so we can't have the film camera. Most of the time, it was not filming when we were shooting the broadcast stuff. But we needed all of that material, so we would have to reenact things. A lot of that is just about planning. It's about knowing ahead of time, before the film starts, before anybody even comes to set, exactly where we're going to be at any one given edit.
Would you ever sort of shoot a full day of the broadcast stuff and then the next day go back and reshoot that stuff with film cameras? Or did you try to keep it so that we would shoot a scene of this right now, and then as soon as we were done shooting in the same day, then roll the film cameras in and try to...
We tried to, but it wasn't always possible. Sometimes you have to go back or you'd cut. I try to find cutoffs that didn't feel artificial, that felt like they were organic to the film.
It's fascinating to me. Hopefully to you guys too. Who's got the first question in the audience?
Hello. My question is for Jodie, but first I wanted to say that I'm a big fan of yours. And when I was a little girl, I saw Clarice Starling, and I wanted to be in the FBI.
Oh, good. Are you in the FBI?
No,
you're not allowed to tell me.
I joined the Army for 6 years.
Great.
But I remember when I was a little girl, I thought, like, oh, we can do anything. Like, so thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
But my question was just, like, do you think it helps you as a director that you were an actor for so long? Do you think, like, it makes a difference in your style?
I think it does. It's the best film school I could have ever been given, really. Especially for somebody like me, I'm somebody who really lives in my head. I'm very organized and kind of, obsessive. And acting was such an amazing touchstone, an amazing outlet, and a way to learn the craft of filmmaking from the inside out. So the way that I approach filmmaking is from the character. I never say something like, we're gonna make this movie and it's gonna look just like that movie, or, what score did they use in that Scorsese movie? Instead, I look at the text and I look at the screenplay and I look at the actors and the characters, and then we shape the film around them. And I think that's what makes it distinct.
Next question.
How's it going, guys?
Good.
First of all, Jack, for what it's worth, I think you would have been the best Han Solo.
Yeah.
I want to say that.
You subscribe to Yahoo? You've been reading Yahoo, haven't you?
I read an article this morning about it, but I want to say, do you guys ever feel an emotional attachment to your characters? And if you do you ever try not to, or like try and keep like a neutrality, or do you try to like keep emotional?
Oh, go ahead, Jodie. Come on.
Emotional attachment. I bet you have an emotional attachment to your characters.
Yeah, but your experience is far more vastly superior to mine. Mate.
I don't know about that. Yeah, there are characters that you, I don't know, maybe you get so much from it that you kind of don't want to let them go, and you don't want to go back to your life of going to Whole Foods and walking the dog. I think for me, that was the brave one, interestingly, and yet she's a killer. But there was something about her, I don't know, interesting, introspective, just the quality of her life that was so appealing to me, and living that experience of that character was hard for me to want to go back to my own life. Yeah.
Is it strange for you when a role that you've taken becomes totally iconic and everyone expects that specific role to be the one that you have held on to the most? For instance, like Clarice Starling, which you won awards for, and it is extremely iconic, but for you, it may have been, a good job, and it won lots of awards, but is it iconic for you as well?
It's pretty moving for me. I mean, that one in particular, I think, was, Clarice is very special, but she was so special in the book. And that's really what that whole movie was about, was an extraordinary book. And every key to that film is in the book. None of us, all of us have done the best work of our life from that book, really. Yeah, I think it's probably, it's probably worse for Anthony Hopkins. There's lots of people that come, going like every time they see him. That's got to be weird.
Jack, what about emotional attachment for you?
Yeah, look, I'm really bad with goodbyes anyway, and particularly if you don't have another job booked to go on to, the idea of unemployment again is always daunting, particularly in this climate. So, yeah, look, I always feel a sense of attachment, but then I think you grow a little hardened to it, don't you, Jodie? If you do it often enough, you understand that that's the pace on the conveyor belt that you're on, and you just got to keep up with it somehow.
Whenever I play movies that happen all in one day, I did that with Panic Room, Flight Plan. You guys did that on this movie. It all happens over the course of one day. Carnage. My favorite thing is to take the costumes and either burn them or cut them up or stamp all over them, because you've been wearing them for 6 months, 5 months, or however long it is. That lovely maroon, sweatshirt, and you just cannot wait to say goodbye to the clothes. The green pants were special to you, I know.
Yeah, I try and keep them all. This says a lot about me.
I love the image of a film crew wrapping up and you're in the back just standing over clothes watching them burn.
A bonfire.
I think we have time for some more questions. Next question.
Hello, guys. Thank you for being here. So, out of all the movies, for both of you, out of all the movies y'all played in, which one would you consider as a sequel? Would you have to continue as a continuation of?
Yeah, so, if someone put a gun to my head and said, out of all the films that you've done, which one would you like to do as a sequel? Yeah, I'm kind of obliged to say Money Monster at the moment.
He would do it with his accent, with the Derby accent. Money Monster.
The spin-off. Yeah, maybe. Look, I miss Cook. I miss playing Cook. I grew up with the character. I felt like our departures happened at the right time, but...
Skins.
Yeah.
Television show Skins. That was extraordinary.
At home, so... I kind of grew up with the lad. It was a very pivotal part of my life, and I got to inject all of these... It was a great outlet, anyway, for someone my age. So, yeah, I'll always feel quite fondly about Cook, but for now, I'd like to see a Money Monster, too.
Jodie?
Well, I guess I would say Clarice Starling. That's really, I love that character. And the Brave One as well, the character in the Brave One.
Now, I have to ask, since we're talking so much about characters from your past, it was the 40-year anniversary of Taxi Driver, which, in my opinion, is just... I still think It's the greatest movie ever made. As hyperbole aside, I can watch it at any time. It's amazing. What was it like? Did you sit down and watch it at the Beacon? Did you go back and look at it? When's the last time you watched it?
I didn't, because I had just seen it the week before with my son. It was the first time that he'd seen it, and I wanted to wait until he was old enough, not because of the violence, but I think I wanted him to see it as a real film buff. And I think you need to be a certain age to really see it as a film buff, and he really appreciated it, so I was glad to go back. There's so many things that occurred to me watching the movie. One is, it's amazing how many racist names get called in that movie, and I'd forgotten. I never even thought about it at the time. I think it was a different culture, and certainly the world has become more and more violent. That there's no contest to that, but we have sort of lost that racial epithet thrown out constantly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real sort of racist undercurrent of the Travis Bickle character throughout the whole movie that definitely doesn't get looked at. In the same way that I think movies from that period, people forget what Saturday Night Fever was actually about. They forget a little bit of what Taxi Driver was actually about as well.
I mean, it's an incredible moment in time where we were, coming out of the 60s and into the 70s and out of Vietnam. That kind of meaninglessness of the returning vets and saying, what can I do that makes me feel like a man in this lonely, lonely city that I don't belong to. Yeah.
In many ways, I would say that Jack's character is a much nicer, much kind-hearted version of the sort of everyman that it feels as though he's getting trampled on by the sort of bigger picture, the society at large. No racial epithets, though.
That's an interesting point you make, because, I mean, as far as my recollection is, when we begin Taxi Driver, he's not evil. We don't think he's evil straight away. And so I think it becomes a question more about the circumstances we see these people in. We can tell that Kyle's not evil. He's just in really compromising circumstances, and he acts quite primitively as a result, which I think we all harbour, strangely or scarily enough.
Yeah, I mean, some of the characters that touch you the most are characters that are unconscious, that don't really have an understanding of their own motivations. They just act and react, and they're not sitting there analyzing them. And I think that's certainly true of Kyle. I mean, he prepared in this day. He got the vest, he got the gun, he got all of that. But beyond that, I'm not really sure that he 100% understands what's next and what his motivations are. He knows that he's angry and he wants an answer, and that's all he knows.
In many ways, to compare one more time, lastly, like Travis Bickle, it's a hilariously inept way to connect. Like, he's trying very hard to connect. And the first half of Taxi Driver is about Travis just trying to connect. Poorly, but that's what he's doing, kind of like Kyle. Guys, when does the movie come out? When can people see Money Monster?
It comes out on Friday, May 13th. That's in a few days,
That's
isn't
in
it?
a couple days. Guys, congratulations on a funny, tense, smart, great movie. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks, everybody.